guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I have a very special guest for a podcast, a man who doesn't need any sort of introduction, and everybody knows you like literally all over the world. So actually I'll just tell you about myself very quickly. I have been doing this podcast journey since 1 year, and I did not have courage to extend my invitation to you. So it was like this Friday, I got courage. I thought I am capable enough to extend an invitation to you. And thank you so much, Tom, to come on my channel. I know everybody, knows you already, but still, if you could, tell us about yourself, background, and a bit about yourself.
Well, pleasure. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm a man who does like to say yes. I am a fortunate man. What do you want to know about me? What do you want to know about me? Well, I'm an ACCA member, and that means that back in the day, in my 20s, I was an ACCA student, which I think was the second best decision I ever made. The best one being getting married to my wife at the age of 22, but that's that's another story. So I've been teaching since my 20s, so I've been teaching for over 30 years. Born and bred in the UK, but it's given me a great ACCA, the qualification, and my career has given me a great opportunity to teach across the world. I've been engaged with ACCA, doing some of their train the trainer programs. Glasses are a little bit wonky, aren't they? Doing some of their train the trainer programs. So I've been to India, I've been to Pakistan, I've been to Nepal with ACCA, upskilling, fantastic stuff. Now though, for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, like you, the internet, isn't it a wonderful thing? So I'm now an online tutor.
Wow, that's amazing. So how was your trip to India, specifically my country? So that's the, wanted to know experience. How is it?
Yeah, it was great. It was great. It was busy, it was, I sort of toured around a little bit. I need to come back, but I wait for the invitation.
Wow. I hope India extends the invitation once again to you and you come back to India for another trip. And let's see. So everybody knows that you are a very busy tutor, and I have been searching through your LinkedIn too. You have been teaching since 1992, so it's a huge amount of years that you have been teaching. So what's a typical day in your life, like if you could tell in a minute or so?
Well, now a typical day in my life is I don't necessarily leave the house because I'm an online tutor. I have my own students, so I must make sure that every day I answer their technical queries. I mark their work, so that's my priority. As you say, I'm active on social media, so I might do a post on LinkedIn or record a podcast. And then I might turn to writing an article or some sort of content creation for my course. I'm looking always to try and improve it. No one day is typical, and I think I'm blessed. I think that's kept me going. Life is not boring.
Exactly. If every day is same, you actually tend to have very monotonous schedule and you get bored of your own life. So it's actually a pleasure to hear that you are engaged in different things. That makes a tutor a passionate tutor.
It's nice to have a bit of a routine so that you've got a comfort zone, so that you've got some structure. And then it's nice to kind of push the boundaries and do things like this. I didn't do this yesterday. I wasn't a guest on a podcast yesterday, and I won't be a guest on a podcast tomorrow. So yeah, something different every day.
Wow, that's amazing. Actually, even I'm a job person, so I work in EY as of now, and it's been like 1.5 years that I've been working there. So, apart from that 9 to 5 job, I try my best to keep myself busy in different things apart from that job. So it's actually make my day more interesting instead of having a monotonous schedule. So everybody knows,
Good for you.
you
Good
are
for you.
SBR expert. And when I was an ACCA student, I actually used to watch a lot of your podcasts and videos on YouTube too. So SBR is a very vast subject as a student. So how do you approach it to your student? Like, is there any particular technique or tricks that could help a student?
Yeah, certainly. It's all about passing the exam. So everything that I try and do is exam focused. And thinking about the exam, for me, it's more about breadth than depth, because it's a compulsory paper. You know, when you go to work, you don't get asked whether you want to do this job or that job. That's your task that you have to do. And it's the same in the examination. So students have to be able to answer something. If segmental reporting comes up, they need to be able to talk about, you know, the chief operating decision maker. So breadth over depth, application is really important. And that's so it's about trying to get the students to understand the principles so that they love it. They understand the dynamics of what's going on, rather than a multiple choice question, skills, rather than just number crunching, skills. Here at skills level, but at the strategic professional level, there's an element of judgment and blending and chaos that I love.
Exactly. So, what I could actually also get from your conversation was that instead of, exporting in a single area, you need to have a broader coverage and, cover every bit of syllabus so that you are able to answer something or another in exam. Instead of
Correct.
sticking to one IFRS or that I want to expertise in PP or, revenue. Instead of doing that, you need to cover a lot of ISAs and everything instead of just sticking to one. That's what you meant, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no point in being the world's expert on group accounts if you don't know anything about financial instruments. And vice versa. We've got to be, rightly or wrongly, in the exam, we've got to be a jack of all trades.
That's the right word that you have used. That is, I skipped through my mind too. So there must be common challenges that students must be facing in SBR, since you have taught a lot of batches. So you must have, understood a common mistakes or common, common challenges that a student face. So what are they according to you, and how should one overcome? Like, my viewers must be ACCA students broadly. So they want to know that what are the common challenges that others are doing that I should avoid in my exam. So what will be those challenges that you would like to highlight?
Okay, so yeah, there are some themes. There are some themes that some students find difficult, or some students have a particular learning style or whatever. But what I try and do is treat students as individuals, and the way to understand their problems and solve their problems is through engagement, and that is normally through the form of marking. So I'm a passionate believer in seeing somebody's product, seeing how they've attempted a particular question. And sometimes there's gaps, there's a knowledge gap, and therefore that needs to be addressed. Sometimes there's too much knowledge. There's too much brain dumping and not enough actual application of answering the question. Sometimes they appear not to have read the question. Right. And so we're trying to get them to sort of pause and pick up on the clue. When it says, when a question says, this is what the young and inexperienced accountant has done, it's a clue. It's a clue that this is a mistake. Very rarely in exam questions, the accounting treatment that is laid out in the question is the right one.
Right.
Because students have to have the courage to disagree with the written word, to disagree with the question, and then to construct the correct answer. So yeah, sometimes too much rote learning, sometimes not enough learning, sometimes misunderstanding. So people are people's brains are beautiful. People are diverse, and they have different challenges. So yeah, but I have to remind people to build their confidence. Sometimes when you mark a script or mark a mock and it's 60, they can focus too much on the 40. They can focus too much on what they've done wrong. And actually, even someone who gets 40 in a mock, they've done 40 good things.
Right.
And they've got to repeat those 40 good things and just do a few more. And it can be sort of, I sometimes spend a certain amount of time picking people up, coaching them, supporting them, making them believe they can pass, giving them the confidence and the enthusiasm to go and do it, because they've got to do the work. They're the ones who pass the exam, but I'm on the side coaching and helping and supporting them.
Wow, that's amazing. Actually, the 40 thing that you mentioned, I sometimes notice that one student may, correctly mention things in mock, and due to exam pressure, they tend to forget things over there which they have previously done correctly in mock. So sometimes it's due to exam pressure too that you tend to forget things that you already know.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn from mistakes. And one of the lovely things about SBR is it's an art rather than science. There's no perfect answer. There's no one right answer. Anyway, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's like actually, what would you suggest attempting? Like actually, ACCA has 50% marks, so there's still room of 50 marks that you can make mistakes. So it's a huge room to make mistakes. So
Absolutely. Yeah, perfection is overrated. At work, of course, the balance sheet's got a balance.
Right.
At work, of course, there can't be spelling mistakes in the report that you present to your client.
Right.
But that's work. You're not given a surprise task at work and told you've got to complete something in a very, very limited amount of time. And no, you can't refer to any colleagues. And no, you can't refer to the internet. And no, you can't refer to the previous file. And you've actually got to do, I mean, what an artificial construction exams are. So we have to play by the rules of the exam. We have to understand the rules.
Exactly.
And then it's easier. It's okay. It's not work. It's not work.
Right.
It's exams. It's a cartoon version.
I agree. Like when I actually, get into that job and EY, I actually saw how everything goes. It's not SBR working alone. It's like SBR, AAA, every subject coming to you on your plate together. So it's like aggregate of all 13 subjects, not just one expertise that you need to work upon.
And before that report goes out, before that advice goes out, you've drafted it, you've redrafted it, your manager's looked at it, the technical department's checked it. It's a team approach.
Right.
But in the exam, you're on your own, aren't you?
I agree. I completely agree. So students don't, get scared that this will be a real practical scenario in your life. This is just the 1% of what you are going to face in your real life. So don't be scared that I don't know accounting in SBR. How will I do accounting in real life? So it's going to be completely different, not completely different, but it's going to be just 1% of what you do in exam.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why to be a member, you've not only got to pass the exams, but you've got to get your PER signed off.
Exactly.
You've got to have that practical experience that makes 2 and 2 equal 5. That explosion of academic excellence and technical knowledge with practical work. That's what makes ACCA such a respected and valued qualification.
Exactly. So, Tom, if I may ask, like, once you were ACCA student, and you also must have done 3 years of practical experience. So, how was your experience like turning, theoretical knowledge into practical? So, how was your experience by then?
So I was. It's a long time ago. That's a long time ago, and I wasn't an accountant for very long. I did work in the I worked in the insolvency service, in the civil service in the UK, dealing with bankrupts. I also worked for KPMG, so I was involved in preparing papers for court, financial papers. I was involved in investigating bankrupts and looking at their tax returns and tracing their assets. That was my area before I found my true vocation of teaching. So that was my and isn't it wonderful that, you know, so many accountancy gives you so many opportunities to work for government, to work in health, to work in charity, to work in banking, to understand business. I see the qualification really as a platform to allow you to go and fulfill your potential. Not all very few accountants remain as accountants.
Right.
Very few accountants remain doing the financial statements and the audit and that kind of narrow area, because, as you said, your mind is blown, because you've dealt with strategy, you've dealt with financial management, you've dealt with tax. You're an all-rounder.
Right.
And then you choose in your career how you special. I happen to go into teaching, you know. Other people go into banking, other people start their own business, whatever, you know. There's a variety. It's up to the individual to work out what they want to do.
Wow. So in Chris, I can say like ACCA is a core part of economy that allows you to actually go everywhere, you know, deep down in economy, be an accountant, everything is actually related to your financials. So you have a very open area. If you have, you know, selected ACCA, not just ACCA, be it other courses at CPA, CMA as well. So it's like you are a huge part of the economy. So be thankful to, you know, selecting that course for yourself.
Massive. And you know, when you think about a hospital, they don't just employ doctors and nurses. The NHS in the UK is the largest employer of accountants, because they need to control their costs. They need to buy products. They need to have wages. They need to prepare financial statements. They may not be accountable to shareholders, but they are accountable. So accountants work in every organization, because every organization has money that flows through it, and the owners and the stakeholders, there's an accountability. So yeah, I'm very lucky. You know, I'm very lucky that I fell into this, and it's been very good to me. And I try and give back on that basis.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, let's now, you know, let's come back to ACCA. Okay, so as an SBR tutor, what resources, study resources, nowadays we also have Study Hub, BPP. Earlier we used to have just two, now we have additional third, that is Study Hub. So how would you recommend students to use that material? Because you know, when I was a student, I faced extreme difficulty that I need to study certain amount of chapters, then only I could move to the exam kit questions, because you don't have, you know, chapter wise question. You need to actually cover certain amount of area, then you will be able to solve exam kit questions. So how will you actually suggest students to do that?
It's not easy. It's not easy. There's almost TMI, you know, too much information out there. And often people ask me, which is best, Kaplan or BPP? And I say, well, you know, which do you prefer? Do you prefer rugby union or do you prefer rugby league? You know, do you like going on the beach for your holiday, or do you like going in the mountains for your holiday? I mean, you know, what's your favorite dish? What's your favorite pop star? It kind of, in a way, doesn't matter whether you do the Study Hub, whether you do Kaplan, whether you do BPP. And I'm not trying to say they're all the same, but you can't do them all. And the risk of doing them all creates confusion. What I would say is there's a limit, because when you're studying that way, you're running the risk of absorbing. And remember, if we're exam focused, it's about application. So it's never ever enough to have the knowledge. It's how you use that knowledge, how you apply that knowledge, how you understand it, so that when it's presented to you in a different format, you recognize it. Because exams are challenging. Strategic professional exams are challenging. I'm not saying skills is easy, But skills is a little bit more knowledge based. Skills is a little bit more repetitive. Skills is a little bit narrower. And as we progress up the level, we're now at the sort of manager, director, strategic level. So yeah, it is harder. And question practice, you're right. Question practice. The one resource that every student must absolutely love is TestReach, the ACCA practice platform, which is free, and that's where the past exams are. And I encourage my students not to practice the exams out of a kit, because that kind of implies they're writing the answer down, but actually do them live to time on the ACCA practice platform. So they're getting used to the functionality, because it's not Excel. It's not Word. There's no spell check. Students have to become comfortable with the functionality and the processes around the exam.
That's amazing. Actually, just the follow-up question. I actually saw TestReach, and every student see that, but the amount of questions there will be obviously less than the amount of questions covered in KIT. So, as a tutor, do you think a student will be satisfied to solve that amount of questions? There, will be something in students' brain that is that amount of practice enough, or I need to do more?
There's quite a lot of questions in the kit. There's quite a lot of questions on the ACCA practice platform. When you look at the past questions, when you look at the specimen questions, yeah, I mean, how much is enough? How much is enough? This is a very philosophical question. One of the things that I battle sometimes with students is they try and do 2 strategic professional exams at one go. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, never do 2 exams in one sitting. That's the rule. Now, there's always going to be an exception to the rule, but really, really think very, very carefully, yeah, because you have a life, you cannot live and breathe ACCA 24/7, all right? And the pressure could get to you, and the risk of doing 2 exams is you get 45 in both, so yeah, you got to pace yourself, and you've got to prioritize yourself.
Exactly. And in that KIT question, less is more. So if you are following the TestReach, the less is more is always applied.
Yes, I think yes. You're never going to work the question that is there in the exam.
You'll always be surprises in exam, no matter how much you practice.
And in that immediate build up to the exam week, in that immediate in the last few days, you've got to have a warm down. What do you think Muhammad Ali did the night before a big fight? I think he had an early night, don't you? I think he had a good night's sleep. He was not going on a long run the night before a big fight, or even a week before the big fight. He was in peak condition because he had put the work in, in the build up. He'd done the tuition, he'd done the revision. And so this panic at the end, no, we need to be calm as we glide into the exam, remembering the basics, thinking about it, making sure we understand, we know what we know. I think the vast majority of students go into the exam with enough knowledge to get 50%. They have enough knowledge to pass.
I agree.
And what can inhibit them is their insecurity that they don't have 100% knowledge. And what can inhibit them is they don't know how to use the knowledge that they have in the context of the question, of exam technique, and to know what they can do right, and to know how they can improve. And that's why built into my courses is always marking, is always feedback, so that the individual knows on an individual basis how they can improve what they're doing good, and that builds their confidence. Now, not everybody can come on my course. I appreciate that, but having a study buddy, if you're an independent self-studier, you've got to do answers to time. Why not show those answers to a colleague at work? Why not show those answers to a friend? Why not show those answers to your partner? Now, they may or may not be an accountant. Ideally, they are an accountant. Is it clear? Is it broken down? Is it logical? The idea is that in exams, we're communicating not with other nerds, not with other experts. We should be communicating to our marketing director and our shareholders who don't quite understand why profit doesn't equal cash, who don't quite understand what a group is and why that company is a subsidiary when you only own 40% of it. Well, a good exam answer is self-explanatory. It's not, dare I say it, like the answers in some of the kits we've been talking about. The examiner's answers and those official published answers are often intimidating. They're not wrong, but they're intimidating. And they're not what the student needs to do to pass the exam. It's a bit like watching Lionel Messi.
Exactly.
We can't be Ronaldo. We can't be Lionel Messi. Yet we can still be a footballer. We can still pass the exam without all those brilliant, lengthy, detailed answers. We need to be more strong. Anyway, I ramble on. We could talk all day.
I agree. You actually summed up the whole thing. It's in a very nice manner. I hope now our viewers understand. It's like I have 15 guests repeating same things, but you actually summed up all my 15 podcast episodes. Now, guys, you need to understand. Please do not stick to the examiner's answer. It's like a person must have, invested 4 to 5 hours just writing a one answer. And you need to write 100 marks paper in 3 hours. So you need to understand that as well. And
You're right. You're absolutely right.
right. And also, actually, I evaluate, mocks. So sometimes students come up, ma'am, it's like 5 days to exam. Should I start doing technical articles? And I'd be like, please calm down. Whatever you know is okay. Do not touch any new topic. It's okay if you left. We'll see next attempt if you don't pass, but please don't do it now. It's like,
yeah, I mean, I have a phrase as we get towards the end, which is about revising your revision. As you've done your revision,
right.
What do you do at the end? Well, you do your revision again.
Right.
you do remember. You have to remember what you do know. There is no point in 48 hours out from the exam suddenly saying, "Oh, I never really understood hedge accounting. I've studied it. I've revised. I never really understood it. Let me now try and crack, this topic." You just kind of have to, I don't know, let it go and see the big picture, don't you?
Exactly.
At the last minute.
Yeah, actually, I use a phrase for my all students. It's like when you have polished the doors, repolish them to actually make them more, nicer instead of polishing a new door and make it worse. So it's like polish your concepts that you already know instead of, going into the new area. So yeah, that's a very, very insightful thought that you just shared. Now sticking to, one more thing, Study Hub. So how do you think Study Hub is? One of my, podcast guests shared that it is still in the developing stage where, there are few areas where students need an improvement. So it's like, how do you feel how it is and how it should be, improved, how it is developed, and how students should use before exam?
It will get better. It's free. It's there. It's part of the service that ACCA provide. But it's not perfect, and I think ACCA would admit that because they want to improve it, and I think over time it will improve. It's ACCA are open access, ACCA are international, all right? So it's a way of helping students who haven't got access to good tuition, all right? But for me, books don't talk at you, and for me, books don't mark your work and give you feedback. So the ideal exercise for a student is to have a relationship, with an educator, with an approved learning provider, rather than just pick up text, rather than passively try and learn stuff.
Okay.
But it's part of the mix, isn't it? It's part of the mix. Is Study Hub a good thing? Of course it is.
Yes.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Is it perfect? Of course it isn't.
Yeah,
You know, but this is life. This is life.
I I completely agree. So, just moving to the conclusion part of my podcast, it is my favorite question, and it is the question that I ask every guest on my channel, no matter which episode you pick up. So, I know you have been doing, ACC since a very long time, and you have seen from 90s to, to 2023. So where do you see ACCA in next 5 years? Like students watching this should be thankful that wow, I picked ACCA and it has a bright future. Or what do you think about ACCA as a worldwide and everything?
5 years ago, you would have been very brave to have said all exams are going to be online. 5 years ago, I wouldn't have predicted Study Hub. 5 years ago, I wouldn't have predicted remote invigilation. What I do know is that the ACCA is very innovative and very nimble. I didn't see the pandemic coming. When I started out teaching, there was a blackboard in the room.
Wow.
When I started out teaching, it was OHP. When I started out teaching, there was no WhatsApp. Yeah. So things have changed. The one thing that is constant is change. So I don't have a simple answer for you. I just know that things will be different. Exactly. And, and that's exciting and that's positive, because as we said in our conversation earlier, if every day is the same, if every exam is the same, if every student has the same problem, then life's a little bit dull. Life is not dull. Life is diverse. Life is rich. Life is challenging. And I think ACCA will evolve as the world economy evolves. Sustainability, if you think about those issues, accountants are going to continue to have a role to play. Right. Yeah, even if you're not profit obsessed, what we're good at is collecting data, summarizing data, and reporting and interpreting that. Right. And when you think about climate change, that's what we need to be doing: collecting the data around it, summarizing it, communicating it. And so I think the accounting qualification will continue to evolve. I'm excited about the next 5 years because I don't know exactly what's going to happen.
Right. Future is very dynamic, especially after Corona. No one can predict future. And I guess ACC is also involving, like when it comes to artificial intelligence, ACC has come up with a lot of new questions, technical articles, everything. So it is actually embedding all the changes in our materials. So that's the best.
Yeah. I mean, artificial intelligence is a good one, isn't it? Because I think it's going to take out, well, like Excel has done. We've had artificial intelligence in a strange way in accounting for a long time. It's called Excel. That's taken away the drudgery of part of our job, and that has freed us up to become more skilled. It makes our analytical skills and our interpersonal skills and our soft skills more valued, because basically the spreadsheet prepares the accounts.
I agree. It's like a dynamic future, but be thankful you have ACCA with you, because ACCA will take care of all the dynamic things for you as a student, as a member. So it will keep on evolving. So that's it from my end. How was your experience in podcast? It was amazing, super amazing to have you on my channel.
Thank you very much. And I'm honored to be invited. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. I hope you liked my episode. Please don't forget to subscribe and like my channel, and comment down here any of the queries you have. I will be there to solve it. Thank you, guys. See you in the next episode with an amazing guest ahead.